Chemical bonding is one of the important part of the chemistry. We are going to learn now coordination compounds and their bonding. And to describe the coordination compounds, three main theoretical approaches develop. If historical perspective, if I inform, in 1924 when de Broglie said that matter can behave like a wave, then Schrödinger developed the equation by which we come to know the quantum numbers. Dirac did the modification on that. People have understood atom very clearly. It was a time now to describe the molecules. And we are studying now description of the coordination compounds in which metal ion and the ligands do remain present. It was not so easy task. But the first simplest theory which came forward, by which people were very fascinated and were happy about that theory is valence bond theory. It is originated in 1930 by Linus Pauling and others. Theory was very simple. Could describe the magnetic properties and geometries. For about 2 decades, theory conquered the world of the chemistry regarding chemical bonding. But at last people come to know its limitations. When they were finding the solution for the limitations of valence bond theory, they realized that before valence bond theory, means before 1930, in 1929, Hans Bethe has proposed that theory. And that theory is valuable. That theory is applicable, which can describe the things which are not described by the valence bond theory. And that theory is crystal field theory. That we are studying in detail. Crystal field theory for coordination compounds. This theory also suffers through serious theoretical limitations. Therefore, we will study other theory which can describe the limitations of crystal field theory, and that theory is molecular orbital theory, which basically is put forwarded in 1935 by Van Leck and Mulliken. Valence bond theory could easily describe the magnetic properties and geometries. What was the base of valence bond theory? Valence bond theory was considering ligands like Lewis base. Lewis base means those are lone pair donors. Means ligands are such a species which have lone pairs in sigma orbital. I hope you know the symmetry sigma. Means those orbitals have lone pairs which can form bond. Means along bond axis, whichever orbitals are there, those orbitals will be with lone pair in case of ligand. So Lewis basicity of the ligand, and metal ion, it assumes like Lewis acids. Who are Lewis acids? Those accepts the lone pair. So with the help of the acid-base bonding, the coordination compounds were explained by Linus Pauling. This valence bond theory is with few postulates. The first postulate, central metal ion remains with its own ability to form bonds, remains with his own capacity to form number of bonds, and that number of bonds means coordination number. As per coordination number, central metal ion will make available s, p, d orbitals in order to accommodate lone pairs given by ligands. That's the first postulate. Second one, each ligand should be with sigma orbital, means which can form bond with metal ion, and that sigma orbital should be with lone pair of electron. Then third postulates, in order to form bonding, metal ion makes provision, makes orbitals available. How does metal ion makes orbital available? Depending upon number of ligands, depending upon number of bonds it has to establish, it undergoes hybridization between its outermost empty orbitals, and in those empty orbitals ligand can come and put their lone pairs and bonding will be possible. Means hybrid orbitals of metal ion and sigma orbitals of ligand, between them bonding is considered by Linus Pauling in valence bond theory to explain coordination compounds. The fourth postulate is geometry of the complex depends upon type of hybridization that metal ion undergoes. If sp3 is hybridization, then tetrahedral will be the geometry. If dsp2 is hybridization, here also 4 orbitals are involved, but geometry will be square planar. If d2sp3 or sp3d2, geometry will be octahedral. So depending upon hybridization, geometry can be described. Suppose sp is hybridization, geometry will be linear. sp2 geometry will be triangular. sp3 geometry will be tetrahedral. dsp2 square planar. If dsp3 is hybridization, means 5 number of orbitals, trigonal bipyramidal. If d2sp3 is hybridization, means one of the octahedral type hybridization I am considering, geometry will be octahedral. And if d3sp3 is hybridization, geometry will be pentagonal bipyramidal. It's a basic idea of valence bond theory. One important clue valence bond theory has given. Magnetic property was experimentally observable, determinable, foundable or measurable. Depending upon the magnetic property, depending upon number of unpaired electrons, valence bond theory could predict, could guess the type of hybridization. If type of hybridization is known, geometry can be known. Therefore, I said geometry and magnetic properties are explained by valence bond theory. I said already for about 2 decades, valence bond theory ruled the world of chemistry regarding bonding. It could wisely explain the geometry and magnetic properties. It could explain low spin square planar complexes, high spin tetrahedral complexes, low and high spin octahedral complexes adequately. During the course of time, people come to know shortcomings of valence bond theory. Let us know what are the shortcomings of valence bond theory. The first shortcoming is about the coordination number 4 and geometry. Because I said if sp3 is hybridization, geometry will be tetrahedral. If dsp2 is hybridization, geometry will be square planar. Then who decides there should be sp3 or dsp2 hybridization? Of course, electronic configuration. But valence bond theory could not give the proper explanation for tetrahedral and square planar complexes regarding their geometry. One example I give it to you. Copper ammonia complex, CuNH342+. Central metal ion is copper plus 2. Copper plus 2 means in d orbital how many electrons should be there? 9 electrons. Atomic number of copper is 29. If I have to distribute the 9 electrons in d orbitals, in first 4 d orbitals there will be the 8 electrons, and last d there will be the 1 electron. So if I see there is no any empty d orbital available, whatever and whoever may be the ligand, d orbitals are not available. If any ligands are coming, guests are coming, then what copper plus 2 can say? Can use outer orbitals. Which are outer orbitals? 4s, 4p. Now copper ammonia complex, CuNH342+, 4 ligands are there. So copper plus 2 can make available which orbitals? 4s and 4p. There should be sp3 hybridization. Beyond doubt, if sp3 is hybridization, geometry should be tetrahedral. But practically it was found the geometry for that complex is square planar. Then in order to describe the square planar geometry, Linus Pauling did shifting of means whatever the one electron remains in the last d orbital, he shifted that. He excited that electron in one of the 4p orbital, causing the d orbital empty. S orbital already is there, and out of those 3 4p orbitals, 2 orbitals are vacant. So now dsp2 hybridization is possible, and that dsp2 hybridization means square planar geometry. With the help of that, easily we can explain the square planar geometry of copper ammonia complex. It was his explanation. But the idea he suggested, the excitation of electron, was also not practically acceptable. It is not going to occur. Other ionization would have been the possible there, which is not practically possible. But only to describe the geometry, he did that all the things. So it was one of the great shortcoming of valence bond theory. Are you following? Description about tetrahedral and square planar geometries was not satisfactorily given by valence bond theory. That is our first demerit. Example I had given, CuNH342+ ion complex. If hybridization is D2sp3 or sp3d2, valence bond theory consider geometry is octahedral. But it is found the complexes may be with the coordination number 6. We may feel it is octahedral, but in true sense, it doesn't remain regular octahedral. Octahedral means there should be such 6 bonds. Means 2 bonds along z-axis, 2 bonds along y-axis, and 2 bonds along x-axis. True sense, all bonds doesn't remain of equal length. Possibilities are there, these 2 bonds are longer. So this is not uniform octahedron. It will be distorted octahedron. So such distorted structures were not considered by valence bond theory. It is a second limitation. All possible geometries are not satisfactorily explained. If complexes are going to form, then thermodynamics involvement a bit natural. Thermodynamics deals with the energetics, so bond energy changes. How are they changing? Why are they changing? About which no explanation is given by valence bond theory. Even stability of the complex should be measurable. Only saying inner orbital complexes are more stable than outer orbital complex. But suppose if I take 2 inner orbital complexes, then who is stable? If 2 outer orbital complexes, who is stable? So clear-cut quantitative idea about the stabilities and the bond energies is not given by valence bond theory. That is its third limitation. People were finding colors for the coordination compounds, and it was a well-known fact that colors, if are observed, then there should be the absorption of energy, and transitions are of electrons. So electronic transitions will absorb light from the UV or visible range. But why for that metal ion or ligand or complex should absorb that light? Where are the energy levels? Where are the gaps? Because in energy levels, if gaps are there, splitting is there, then only electron can move from one place to other place. Electron can excite from one level to other level. About such excitation of the molecule, excitation of coordination compound, excitation of the metal ion, no such explanation is given by valence bond theory. So colors of the coordination compounds were not at all explained by valence bond theory. That is its fourth limitation. Valence bond theory, we say that could explain the magnetic properties properly, but scope was limited. It was found with change in temperature, few complexes show change in the magnetic moment. So change in the magnetic moment with change in temperature was not at all explained by valence bond theory. It is its fifth demerit. Now sixth, an important demerit. If you see the valence bond theory, it has explained orbitals of metal ion, it has explained hybridization, it has explained geometry, it has explained number of unpaired electrons present in the metal ion or absence of unpaired electron in the metal ion orbitals. What about ligands? What about ligand orbitals? Valence bond theory has not addressed properly ligands, because ligands also are part and parcel of coordinate bond, but ligands were not explained properly. It is also the important limitation. Are these 6 demerits of valence bond theory clear? In order to overcome these limitations, we need to study which theory? Right, crystal field theory. Though it is older than valence bond theory, but people realize the importance of that crystal field theory. Let us see what is that crystal field theory in next part. During description of the first demerit, I told you about the geometry of copper ammonia complex. The same question I am asking here. Copper ammonia complex undergoes which hybridization as per VBT? In order to explain that hybridization, in order to explain that geometry, valence bond theory committed a mistake. So question is type of hybridization in copper ammonia complex. Write your answer in comment box.